Did you know that soft tissue was found in a femur of a T-Rex? Paleontologists have discovered original soft tissue in several dinosaur fossils thought to be 68 million years old. How could this organic material survive so long? Could it be that dinosaur fossils aren't as old as we're led to believe?
Olá, pessoal, que a paz de Cristo seja com todos. Estamos aqui para realizarmos mais uma grande live para o canal. Hoje nós estamos aqui com o Dr. Armitage, ele que é um PhD em Biologia, e ele vai estar nos explicando um assunto de extrema importância relacionado aos tecidos moles em fósseis de dinossauro. Desde já eu quero pedir para o Célio cumprimentar o pessoal. Fica à vontade, meu amigo, você está com a palavra.
Obrigado. Welcome, Dr. Mark Armitage. I am Célio João Pires. I am pesquisador, estudante do design inteligente e criacionista bíblico. Seja muito bem-vindo. Ao público também seja muito bem-vindo. Tângelo, Jadson, obrigado por essa participação. Sinto-me muito feliz em estar aqui com vocês.
Ok, Otângelo, você está com a palavra, cumprimento pessoal.
Sim, boa tarde a todos que estamos usando o Zoom. Não conseguimos usar o StreamYard, então nós vamos ser breves e começar logo com as perguntas para o professor e doutor Armitage.
Eu gostaria de fazer a primeira pergunta, Otângelo, para o Dr. Armitage, que é o seguinte: você pode nos contar, Dr. Armitage, sobre a sua descoberta mais importante em relação ao fóssil do Triceratops e por que você acredita que o tecido mole encontrado indica que o fóssil é mais jovem do que geralmente se pensa? Pode perguntar para ele, Otângelo.
So, Dr. Armitage, we would like to know from you in regards of your most important discovery, probably it must have been Triceratops, and why you believe that the tissue that has been found there is younger than what the common evolutionary timeline suggests us.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be with you, and sorry for the problems, but hopefully this will turn out good. I really don't consider the Triceratops horn our greatest discovery. I think it was a very important discovery, but I would call our greatest discovery the discovery of nerves, which made the cover of Microscopy Today. So we're the only ones finding real nerves, dinosaur nerves, inside of dinosaur bones, and we're finding this repeatedly. We have 2 or 3 papers now just on nerves, but the Triceratops horn was an important find because it was completely ripped away from the skull and it was pointing down into the dirt. So the large end was facing the rain and the mud and the snow and the freezing. And so that infiltrated the bone, but most of the bone is still bone. Only the very center of the bone turned to rock. And yet we found that soft, stretchy tissue that you've seen stretched under the movie is Genesis History. That was in my laboratory. And we found cells and nerves in that specimen. So it was just the beginning. We have 13 papers now on dinosaur soft tissue, not only from Cretaceous, but from Jurassic. We studied Camarasaurus and also into the Permian. Our second nerve paper was about nerves in Permian specimens, which are supposed to be 290 million years old. And there's no preservation mechanism for these objects. So how can they be there?
Então, ele passou um monte de informação, vai ser difícil para fazer a tradução de tudo. Ele disse que ele não considera o Triceratops a descoberta mais importante. O mais importante é que ele encontrou nervos, ou seja, tecido mole de nervos em várias espécies, e isso aí para ele é a descoberta maior. Também no Triceratops, a parte do, eu não sei como fala
Chifre.
o chifre, exato, ele foi encontrado destacado do resto do corpo e a maior parte, só a parte de dentro do chifre que é petrificado e o restante não é. Dr. Armitage, one of the criticisms which I have heard recently from some advocates of evolution is they are doubting that the horn that you did find is really from a Triceratops, and they suggest that it could be eventually from a bison. So do you have kind of proofs that the horn is indeed from this Triceratops? Have you kind of photographic documentation or something which demonstrates without any doubt whatsoever that it is indeed a Triceratops horn?
Well, the Triceratops horn is completely horn all the way through. I'm sorry, completely bone all the way through. A bison horn is a small piece of bone with a large keratin covering over it. And so there's really no comparison. Plus, horns, Triceratops horns are very common at the dig that we go to. We've been to 13 different digs, but we mostly go to Hell Creek, and we invite everyone to come. If you want to see it for yourself, you can see Triceratops horn everywhere. In fact, we just dug in Wyoming at the Hansen Ranch, and you can see beautiful horns at the Hansen Ranch. Just Google Hansen Ranch Dig, Hansen Ranch Dig. So we invite people to come if they're skeptical, but horns are common there. It's solid bone, the base of the horn. I don't have it here in my lab with me, but it's large and it's bone throughout. So there's no keratin, and mostly bisons are very small bone with a large amount of keratin. So there's no comparison between the size of these solid bone horns and the bison horns. But really, that's not the issue. The issue is, again, we have found condyle, ribs, frill, T-Rex, Edmontosaurus, Dimetrodon, K-Cops. I mean, over and over and over, we're showing soft tissue, not just in this horn, but everywhere we dig. And we only dig in the places that are known to science. So we're not going to new digs. Everyone is welcome to come. You're welcome to come to this lab and take a lab. I offer a 4-day intensive lab. You see all the microscopes behind me. We use the best Leica equipment to show people with their own eyes, and they can see it for themselves. So we're not hiding everything. We have a library of specimens that can be loaned out, so you can see all this for yourself, no problem.
Então, o Dr. Armitage ele está dizendo que qualquer pessoa também, quem é proponente de evolução, pode ir lá, pode ir fazer curso de 4 dias no laboratório dele, pode ir para os locais de escavação e ver com os próprios olhos. Então, não existe nenhum tipo de segredo em relação a isso, é tudo muito aberto e qualquer um pode ir lá e descobrir por si só. E outra coisa importante que o chifre do bison, ele tem colageno do lado de fora, enquanto o chifre do Triceratops, ele é todo de osso, ou seja, são diferenças significativas, e também do bison é menor do que do Triceratops. Então, na verdade, não existe nenhuma possibilidade de confundir um com o outro. Então, isso aí também é uma coisa que ninguém na academia tem algum tipo de dúvida em relação a isso. Então, Célio, você pode fazer outra pergunta.
Eu vou falar a respeito dos radiohalos, tá? Por favor, nos relate quais são as descobertas de radiohalos em granitos e diamantes e por que isso é importante para compreendermos quando os granitos da crosta foram criados. Eu li nos artigos dele que tratava disso, os radiohalos, elementos radioativos, né? Por que isso é importante? Não é só sobre os tecidos moles, ele fez pesquisas em outras áreas também.
So, Dr. Armitage, it seems that you have also published scientific papers in regards of radio hollows. So, Celia would like to know more about this, and maybe you can give us some elucidation in regards of this scientific research you have done.
Yes, I did a lot of work with radio halos and Dr. Bob Gentry. That's now almost 2 decades ago. So I haven't been working on radio halos since then, but I think Dr. Gentry has made a wonderful argument that the primordial granites, the basement granites of the continents, have radio halos in them that can only form instantaneously. So that sounds to me like the ground appeared quickly. And it fits with what the scripture says. God said, let the dry ground appear. That must have happened instantaneously. But these granites are found all over the world, and they're full of these radiohalos, particularly 214, polonium 214, which only has a half-life of 0.000164 seconds or something like that. It's so fast that you can't even stop it on your stopwatch. And so for those to be present in the granite, which were heated to a certain temperature, and still they're there, shows proof that these things formed very rapidly. Now, Dr. Snelling and I did some work in the past with flood-related rocks, and we showed that all the different types of halos were present in those rocks and not just the polonium 214. So it does fit with what was going on probably during the flood, a lot of heat exchange, a lot of flows of hot saturated solutions through these rocks. And so we think it points a good picture to how these things were formed instantly in the beginning and then gradually over 150 days in the flood.
Então, ele está dizendo que eles são provas que tudo isso foi formado muito rápido, ou seja, tanto a formação de todos os granitos no mundo inteiro, como também a evidência do dilúvio de Noé. Ou seja, todas as evidências apontam que a formação foi muito rápida e não pode ter ocorrido ao longo de um período de muito tempo.
O Dr. João Paulo que fez essa pergunta para fazer para o Dr. Armitage. Qual que é a visão dele em relação à descoberta da doutora Mary Schweitzer?
Ah, sim, sim.
O que ele acha em relação a encontrar tecido mole em fósseis de T-Rex?
So, Professor Armitage, we want to know in regards of Mary Schweitzer's discovery of the T-Rex soft tissue. What is your take on that?
Well, I think she did excellent work. She worked with long bones. In fact, most of the literature before 2020 is strictly about long bones, femurs. We've only been working with shards. The horn was a shard. The condyle that you see on the cover of this journal, that was a shard. The frill, the ribs, everything that we've been working on are broken bones that are still buried in the ground. But she's made some wonderful discoveries. Her microscopy was wonderful. She did some immunohistochemistry, which proved beyond any doubt that these are original tissues. She actually found the nucleolus, not just the nucleus in a cell, but the nucleolus, and she found histones in there, which are DNA wrapping proteins. You know, the DNA molecule is very long, so it has to be wrapped up and wrapped up. She found the proteins inside the nucleolus that actually wrap those DNA molecules. So I think her work is astounding, but she painted herself in a corner because they had no preservation mechanism for all this tissue. And now they're saying, oh, it was the iron. But the iron, it eats up these fat cells and nerves like Pac-Man. So it's really not a good preservation mechanism, but that's all they've done. And now everybody believes it's the iron, but we're finding world first discoveries that show that the iron was not involved.
Então, ele está elogiando muito o trabalho da Mary Schweitzer. Ele está dizendo que ela abrindo os ossos, elas encontraram até o nucleolus e até os stones, que são partes internas que envolve o DNA na proteína, né? E ela publicou artigos que supostamente explicariam com ferro a preservação dessas partículas, só que isso infelizmente não é uma explicação plausível. Então ele está dizendo que ela basicamente ela se manobrou para um beco sem saída, né? Então Dr. Armitage, would you say that this is very powerful evidence that these fossils cannot be kind like of 65 million years old? And in special, it seems that in the region in pre-ice historic times, that was about 20 degrees Celsius or something like that, which would be kind of warm weather, and that would normally degrade these soft tissues much faster rather than if it would be in a colder environment. So isn't that very powerful evidence that this soft tissue cannot be 65 million years old?
Yeah, I think it's very powerful evidence, and the fact that we're finding it everywhere, every specimen. In fact, if I could share screen, I'd like to show you a poster that my student and I are going to present at the International Microscopy meeting. So if I could share screen, would that be okay? And
Yes, of
just show you
course.
this.
Então, ele está querendo mostrar aqui uma imagem sobre. eh, Pronto.
So this is a poster that Jonas Cruz, he's my student, and myself, I'm going to support him. But Jonas is 16 years old, and he's going to present this in about 3 weeks at the International Microscopy and Microanalysis meeting in Cleveland. And these are soft tissues that have been recovered not from buried bones, but from surface shards. And so we went back to where we found the horn and we collected off the surface these pieces of bone that were on the surface for we don't know how long. Some of them have lichen growing on them, so probably decades. And he's finding cells, beautiful cells inside of here. We've liberated cells, but these nerves that we're finding look like they came from a chicken yesterday.
Então, isso é bastante interessante, que na imagem ele demonstrou um trabalho que ele vai apresentar com o estudante dele de 16 anos daqui a 3 semanas, e isso aí é, são ossos que eles encontram não estão nem enterrados na terra, mas na superfície da terra. E eles encontraram células que podem ser vistos e também nervos, né, que é uma coisa que eu acredito que seja muito difícil de ser explicado se alguém supõe milhões e milhões de anos.
A pergunta que eu quero fazer para ele, Otávio, é o seguinte: quais são as implicações principais que ele enxerga nessa descoberta em favor de uma vida jovem na Terra?
So, would you say, Dr. Armitage, that these findings and this evidence is powerful evidence for a young Earth?
Yes, I would say this is very powerful evidence for a young Earth. You know, the Cretaceous layer that we're digging goes all around the planet. It's one continuous layer, and we've only dug here in North America. Other people have dug in South America and have found tissues there. And so we would like to dig the whole Cretaceous layer all the way around the Earth. But we think it's one event from Permian all the way to Cretaceous. We think that's one event because we even find soft tissues down in the Permian. That's supposed to be 300 million years old. And so how can you have these kind of soft specimens in these bones that are supposedly so old? This would decay away. My training at the university was soft tissue. That's what I learned how to do, is prepare soft tissue. So when I first heard about dinosaur soft tissue, I said, no way, because I could see in my lab how tissues break down quickly. And that's how I got into this as a soft tissue expert. I went to see this for myself, and it's everywhere.
Então, ele está dizendo até na extrata do Permiano, que supostamente tem 300 milhões de anos, eles encontram tecido mole em tudo quanto é lado. E isso é uma camada que se estende no redor do globo. Ou seja, eles têm cavado principalmente nos Estados Unidos, mas eles gostariam também de fazer as mesmas escavações na América do Sul, mas isso aí é evidência no redor do globo todo que são encontrados esses remanescentes de tecido mole. Então, ele considera que isso aí é evidência poderosa por uma terra jovem.
Professor Célio?
A suposta preservação dos tecidos das biomoléculas, pela teoria da doutora Schweitzer, a respeito do ferro livre, da hemoglobina. Isso é resultado, seria possível, como ela fez experimentos de laboratório, se os experimentos de laboratório são compatíveis com aquilo que se observa na natureza, principalmente citando agora que os ossos estão na superfície, se é possível a teoria do ferro livre ter alguma seriedade em relação à preservação das biomoléculas fósseis, em função justamente das enormes alterações de temperatura, umidade, pressão, enfim, dos fósseis.
Do you think, Dr. Armitage, that there is still kind of a possibility that Mary Schweizer's hypothesis of iron preservation could still explain the preservation, and therefore these remains could still be millions of years old?
I think it's very difficult for iron to be the mechanism. If you read the medical literature, there are many papers that discuss how dangerous it is to have just naked iron in your body. They talk about how it just destroys cells and membranes and organs if left unchecked. So we know from the science of medicine that iron destroys tissues. Moreover, when we preserve soft tissues in formaldehyde, we call it formalin, or glutaraldehyde or osmium, even though they're preserved, they still rot. Every human body that gets preserved and goes to a funeral and sits in a casket gets buried in the ground and it decays, even though we preserved it. And iron is inefficient as a preservative. It only makes a few links, and they surmise that everything gets linked, but they've not proven that yet. They've only discussed iron preservation for blood vessels. They haven't talked about nerves. They haven't talked about veins. They haven't talked about many of the other tissue cells that we're finding. So they've only made their explanation for blood vessels, not anything else.
Então, eles só fizeram um experimento para vesículos de sangue, mas o fato é que o ferro, ele destrói os tecidos, não é o oposto. Ou seja, na verdade, essa hipótese ela não corrobora absolutamente esses milhões de anos que são supostos.
Ok. Vai dar fazer a última pergunta, que é em relação a como podemos chegar a datações mais realistas sobre a idade desses fósseis.
So Professor Armitage, how can we come to more realistic datings of the age of these bones that can also be kind of be accepted universally also by those which are skeptics in regards of a young Earth of these remains?
Well, skeptics will be skeptics sometimes without, considering any of the evidence that's presented before them. In fact, Dr. Schweitzer experienced that when she tried to publish the first time. The editor said, "I won't accept anything you say about it because it cannot be there." So there is still a group of people who deny the existence of soft tissue, but as I said, it's everywhere. So carbon-14 has given us a good idea of these bones being about 30 to 40,000 years old. I still think that radiometric dating has many flaws in it. They have to fudge the numbers to get it to work out right. So, but again, as a soft tissue processing expert, I'm astonished that these tissues are here after 500 years or 1,000 years. Now, if the flood was 4,500 to 5,000 years ago, I would say that's probably a pretty good number. But I'd even be willing to say 10,000 years. It wouldn't bother me with that. Some people would be upset with that number if they really hold to scripture very tightly, which I do. But I can't see these being more than 10,000 years old. And like I say, you can come to my lab and see these things and you can watch them degrade over time. We've taken pictures over several months of nerves and we can see them degrading even on our permanent slides.
Então, ele é especialista mesmo na análise de tecido mole. Ele diz que ele fica surpreso até ver tecido mole ficar preservado por 500 anos. Então, ele acredita que no máximo, até 10 mil anos seria já uma coisa aceitável, mas não mais tempo do que isso. E qualquer um que duvida disso já fez o invite, repete de novo que qualquer um que tem dúvidas em relação a isso pode ir no laboratório dele, e ele disse que até mesmo diante dos olhos deles se pode ver a degradação desse tecido mole. Então, essa é uma coisa que acontece com muita facilidade e rapidez.
Valeu. Professor Célio, deixe suas considerações em um minuto aí.
Ok, obrigado, Otângelo, Jadson, Dr. Mark Armitage. Hoje, os tecidos moles ou biomoléculas é uma regra em todos os fósseis, praticamente. Eu tenho uma lista aqui feita pelo Brian Thomas e o Bob Enyart, que tem mais de 230 artigos científicos detectando biomoléculas. Então, não é mais uma exceção as biomoléculas nos fósseis, ela é uma regra. Isso é extremamente importante para a ciência, então nós temos que conviver com isso e, obviamente, fazer a pergunta principal: eles são tão antigos quanto nos dizem que são? Eu acredito que não. Agradeço muito a grande oportunidade, se puder transmitir o Tângelo para ele, por favor.
So we want to thank you, Dr. Armitage, for your time with us. Maybe you can give your last considerations and to our audience here in Brazil.
One of the things we're doing, which we think is very exciting, is we're going into public schools and we're teaching them about dinosaur soft tissue. We're getting letters of recommendation from public schools all over the country that we get to go into, and we present according to the state standards. The state standards talk about fossils and they talk about degradation of fossils. And so we come in and we show all the dinosaur soft tissue in the schools, and they love it because the kids are getting excited about science. They want to go into science as a career. And so we're the only ones being allowed in the public school, and we're presenting everything to them.
Então, o professor Armitage, ele é convidado nos Estados Unidos para ir nas escolas públicas para apresentar as evidências. As crianças ficam entusiasmadas com todas essas informações e são encorajados de entrar na pesquisa científica. Então, eu agradeço a oportunidade, professor Marco Armitage. Espero que nós possamos ter outras oportunidades, talvez um pouquinho mais extenso, também recebendo perguntas do nosso público, né? Mas eu acredito que o que ele tem nos apresentado é bastante esclarecedor e agradeço muito pela participação. So, thank you very much, Dr. Armitage, for coming to our stream, for your information, which I think has been very, very clarifying and elucidating of what we are dealing here. And
Yes,
we
and
hope
don't forget about our website, distry.org. All of our papers are there. Everything that we publish is up there, and free books too. You can download that from our website.
Então, depois nós vamos colocar também um link para a página dele. Qualquer um que queira saber mais sobre o trabalho dele pode acessar e se informar. E repito mais uma vez, o trabalho dele não tem nada de segredo. Qualquer um que tem interesse pode ir no laboratório, ver os tecidos, pode ir nos lugares de escavação, participar. Não existe segredo em relação a tudo isso.
Galera, essa live foi breve devido nós não conseguimos ter entrado no StreamYard. Eu quero agradecer o irmão Otângelo, o professor Célio e o doutor Armitage. E, Otângelo, pede para ele deixar as considerações finais dele. Fala que nós agradecemos por ele estar aqui conosco, deixando aí uma mensagem para a reflexão dos brasileiros em relação ao assunto. Fique à vontade.
So what would be your last words, Professor Armitage, in regards of those that are skeptics and insist and believe that the soft tissues could be millions or hundreds of millions years old?
My professor used to say to me, don't be afraid of where your science leads you. And I think people who are skeptical, I was skeptical and I went out and found out for myself. Be willing to go out and find out for yourself. And we can help you do that. But listen to all sides. Don't just listen to one side, because often one side doesn't get it right. But if you listen to all sides, you'll see this is common. It's everywhere we dig. Come on a dig. We'd love to have you come on a dig with us.
Então, ele diz, se você é cético, escute todos os lados, seja aberto para permitir que a evidência leve você aonde que seja. Ele, mais uma vez, ele está de braços abertos para receber qualquer visitante, para ir escavar junto com ele e ver com os próprios olhos o que acontece.
Valeu, galera. Deixa o like nesse vídeo, compartilhe esse conteúdo nas suas redes sociais. Que Deus abençoe a todos e até a próxima live, se Deus permitir. Tchau, tchau.
Valeu.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
We see you next time.
Okay.